Alrighty, fans, welcome to Sports Chat. Once again, this week we're wrapping up the football season. In this case, the important part of college football season, which would be the fall season.
Yeah, no bowl game this year. Can't say it's a successful year for Butch Jones, but he was dealt a pretty bad hand. It's hard to win the World Series of Poker. If the best hand you got's a low pair or something. He just dealt a bad hand this year. You played what you could. Probably should have beaten Vanderbilt. Had a shot to beat Georgia. Would have been bowl eligible. It made a big difference to the program, and probably had some more. I'm not sure. There are some. Always going to be some people who don't like who the coach is. There would have been a little less harsh vibe towards Coach Jones if he had won. But I think once February rolls around, if we sign the players we have recruited right now, that a lot of that's going to go away for a while. And just on to 2014 and another year with a brutal schedule. Not really probably going to have that much experience back. I'm looking at again at 6-6 as a top season. And that may make a few more fans mad, but it just is what it is right now. And that's what people have to realize. Anything above that, I would be very surprised and really excited.
But, at the same token, and of course it's not official, the papers are signed and people are registered and on campus, but upsides Jones has is the recruiting class he's got right now.
It's a wonderful recruiting class, and it may be the best one he signs while he's here because it's going to be so big. Because we're so low on scholarship players, we're going to have probably as many as 10 players, I believe, maybe a few more than that, enrolled in January. Jalen Hurd probably being the prize among those because we need running back help. And if he ends up playing running back, and from all reports are he's going to end up playing running back. He's a huge guy, though. He's 6'3" and 240 pounds. And that's usually the kind of guy you see at defensive end or linebacker. But he's apparently a very good running back. He has all the speed you need. They say he's like Eddie George. Personally, if I were a player and I had that great of speed and that size, I would rather be a defensive end. Simply because in the NFL, he's got an NFL caliber athlete. You have a longer career and you make more money at defensive end than you do at running back. That's just me. But Tennessee needs both positions. I wouldn't care if he played either one of them. But we need everything right now. In one class, a freshman is not going to do it. It's going to be a building block or a brick, as Coach Jones likes to call it. And it's going to propel us upwards, but it's going to take a while for it to show up on the field because you can't just come in and count on a bunch of freshmen, really.
Right, and there's also been some talk on Basilio today about just some sort of weird situation where if Auburn were to make the title game, there would be some sort of weird situation where UT could play in a bowl game. Have you heard that?
No, I'm assuming that it's going to open up another slot for the SEC. I don't really see how that could happen because the last I heard that you had to win 6 games to get in the bowl.
So that was my understanding.
That's always been my understanding. There is no 5-game exception that I know of. I assume the SEC would maybe have more teams, or it would free up a bowl from the SEC if Auburn goes and plays in the national title game. But I really don't know how that would help UT because a lot of times when a conference can't fill its bowl slots, they simply give it to another team that actually has the 6 wins from another conference. I don't know. I don't think it could happen, but it may. I'll check into that. I've never heard of it happening before.
I hadn't either, and like I said, I'd hoped maybe you had heard something that had some insight on it.
I had not heard of that at all happening before. And that's the last I'd heard. One of the set in stone rules: you have to win 6 games to be bowl eligible, or to have a 500 record or above.
Of course, speaking of wins, UT did manage to pick up and win against a very bad Kentucky team, which kept them once again on that level of having never lost
Still
8 games in one
Ohio
season.
State never lost 8 games. That was all there was left to play for. That and just the pride of beating Kentucky. A senior class, you got to feel for them. It's the least successful senior class since 1906. Seniors graduated, so the least successful in 106 years. First time Tennessee's had 4 seasons this bad in a row in over 100 years. And still, that's the only thing they managed to hold on to basically in their career, because every other negative record, and it's not their fault, because most of them, or a lot of people who signed are gone. Of course, we all know the coaching turmoil and how terrible of Coach Dooley was, and just all the bad decisions that spiraled over there starting in 2005 when Philip Fulmer wasn't immediately fired after he lost to Vanderbilt, which is what should have happened. And it's just been a spiral downhill since then. And this senior class is going to leave. It's the worst defensive performances ever in the history of Tennessee football. The most losses probably in a 4-year span. Just a bunch of bad records you didn't want any part of. But, you know, the ones that stayed, they gave it everything they had. They're Tennessee. They're all for life. Hopefully they'll get to be around the program in good times. And maybe a few of them will actually make it to the NFL, be able to make some money. Everybody who goes to the NFL ends up helping Tennessee a little bit more.
This is true. You know, also was listening to Tennessee Sports Radio earlier. It was kind of the same case it was Maurice Couch. You know, he was he took money, but he made some good points today about, he's like, you know, it was, I was looking at the disillusion of my family. You know, a lot of people do it, and, you know, the NCAA maybe ought to consider, you know, increasing the athlete stipend.
I'll look at it this way. The NCAA, I think the new championship format that they went to starting next year, it produced a TV contract of several $1 billion. The SEC's contract is several $1 billion. The games, $50, $75 a ticket. You get 90,000, 100,000 of those.
Concessions,
The big donations on top of it, concessions.
parking.
Tennessee's athletic budget takes in about $115 million a year. And football takes in about $60 million of that a year. Maybe $70 million even. And the players, you get at a given time 85 scholarships. That's basically not very much compared to the money they're taking. They could afford to pay the players a couple of $1,000 a week, but the NCAA never wants to do that. They're not going to want to give up any money, of course, and you never want to open that can of worms, because as soon as you do that, a union's going to pop up, and they're going to demand more money and more money and more money, and then it's just going to be the NFL. But it's a very fine, hard line to walk through. The way I look at it, you're getting your education paid for, which that's worth $50,000 probably to people out of state especially.
Oh, definitely the people from out of state tuition's through the roof.
I mean, you get all the food you want. You can actually get a job now and work. I mean, you may not have as much time to do it, but you can work all summer. And all people are always willing to give Tennessee players a job. You can do that. I can see the point of the player, you're going out there and giving it that effort, but it's not like they don't get anything out of it. They do get some things out of it. And if you make a bowl, which Tennessee's not been in the bowl in years, they get about $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 worth of gifts and travel money and things like that. That's one other thing that's hurt Tennessee not making bowls. You don't think about it that way, but the players actually do get paid basically to go to bowls.
Right. That is the one instance where the players can get a gift and it not hurt their eligibility.
So they get a gift from it, and they're given essentially the price of a hotel room and a round-trip plane ticket to travel. But most of the players pocket that money, and they jump in a car with each other and go. Because people, you may think the team takes, they don't. The team does not take players to bowl games as a general rule. Because the players are on break from school during that time, usually home with their families. They're given money for travel expenses and said, be here on this day.
And like you said, they all cram into the family truckster.
And a bunch of them will get together. I mean, I've known quite a few football players from where I used to work. And they would just jump in Cozy Coleman's Cadillac and take off for the bowl game. And each of them would have, $1,000, $1,200 for their plane ticket. And you spend $200 on gas and you clear the rest of it. But they get paid a little bit, not probably enough for what they bring in, but it opens up such a can of worms. Then you start opening up basketball, they want money. And then all the other sports that don't make money are going to want money. And I don't know, it's a tough spot to be in. I guess as long as players keep agreeing to do it, I wouldn't be opposed to, getting an education paid for. Basically getting, if you're a good enough player, you get 3 or 4 years of really intensive training for what amounts to being a extremely high-paying job in the NFL. There's part of it I wouldn't mind seeing them opt out and be able to not maybe do the classroom work because it's pointless for some of them.
Yeah, agreed. I went to UT, and I had class with a bunch of athletes, and by that I mean there were a lot of athletes on the roll of my class. A lot of them, I had class with C.J. Black, and Vincent Yarbrough, and once basketball season started, you didn't really see them.
Some of them are good students. They make time to do everything done. They go to class. Some of them don't care about academics, like Cordell Patterson. He apparently, he was here for a semester. He didn't know academic work. In the second semester, he didn't have to. He knew he wasn't coming back. And it's the same thing with basketball. The one done to Kentucky. Once they did away with the APR penalty for players leaving early for the NFL or the NBA or wherever they would leave early, as long as they were in good academic standing their first semester,
Second semester
it didn't matter. They would just ditch it and not go. Some of them apparently, they may have, I think they even changed it possibly to where that since you only get on probation basically on your first semester, you don't go to class at all. There were rumors that Cordell Patterson never went to class, never did anything academic related.
He knew.
He knew he was gone. There was just no point in it. And the big center for Kentucky that was pretty good, not the job of the giant unibrow, but the one before him, he played with John Locke. I'm sorry, I can't remember. DeMarcus Cousins. Apparently DeMarcus Cousins, they said he never stepped foot in a classroom his freshman year at Lacey. Never stepped foot in it. Didn't have to. He knew he was gone. He didn't care. It doesn't matter about his academic standing. And if you can get away with it, I just think they should not play with the charade and just say, well, if you want to come here and play football,
Come play football.
you can come play football and you can, get a job on campus. Work in the campus kitchen on your days during the off season or something like that. Work in the commons. Do something. If you don't want to do the school work, or just come and play football, whatever. It should be something different. The academic part of it is mainly a joke. And if you want to use it though to get a good education, go and get a good education with it because frankly, 95% of the people who go to play college sports need the education part of it because they're not going to get paid to play.
Right. It's a very, you look, UT's roster on average, scholarship players with 82, 85.
There's 85 usually. There's some attrition. It floats between 82, 80 to 85. They're probably 60 right now, maybe 65.
And out of that 60, you're looking at maybe 4
in a
that'll
good
see NFL time.
In a good NFL type year when Tennessee's really humming along or a big school's humming along, you're probably going to get 5 players in the NFL out of each class. And at any given time, you basically have 5 classes on campus because of red shirts. So, that's at the top-notch schools, you have a 20% chance basically of making the NFL, or 20% of you are going to make it. And then you're not going to stick. You're going to make it for a year. You're going to get drafted. You're maybe going to get a bonus contract. But there's just not that many slots.
And, I was watching.
It's even fewer in basketball. There's opportunities to play in Europe, but in basketball, the NBA has a very low turnover rate.
I was watching over the Thanksgiving holiday. I watched Broke, the ESPN 30 for 30 documentary. And if you're not a top draft pick, it's not like you're making millions of dollars and you can play a year, invest and be done.
And the NFL especially is not. And the NFL, after you get out of the first round, the money falls off really quickly.
And they're not guaranteed contracts.
No, the NFL can cut you at any time, and you only get what you went up to at that point. If you get drafted in the top, the second round, you're going to get a decent signing bonus, probably several $100,000.
Which Uncle Sam will get half of.
You're going to get half of that about it. You're going to get whatever money you get through training camp, through fall camp. But if you get cut, they're done. You don't get another guy.
Once.
It's tough, and the NFL's the toughest of all of them. Baseball is the most lenient and the most opportunities to get paid to play a sport.
Because incredibly
Just
massive
massive
minor league
spot. You
system.
can make a crowd. To be honest with you, the classes, if you're going to be required to take any classes as an NCAA athlete, managing your money would probably be the number one. Because you see people who blow through astounding amounts of money immediately. And you don't really need 3 Lamborghinis and a 25,000 square foot mansion.
How many Lamborghinis can you drive at once? One.
But people go out and buy stuff like that just because they have some money and they end up broke. And it's never made sense to me. I don't know why you wouldn't. If you just make any kind of moderate investments, you can live easily the rest of your life
Oh yeah.
off of them. But
Well, I can give an example. Go to the wrestling thing. Jerry Lawler, who never really, up until the end of his career, was ever on a big stage like WWE. You know, when he left the first time he was commentating wrestling in WWF, he left and he's like, I've got enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life, but I don't have enough to live the lifestyle I was accustomed to. So he went back.
yeah, but there's not really any going back in sports.
Right.
I mean, I guess you can go into wrestling if you leave football, like Mongo did, or some other few notables.
It worked out well for Lawrence Taylor, that one.
That terrible
True.
Bill Goldberg. I'm not sure he actually got paid to play it. I'm sure he got paid something in Georgia. But still, there's not that many opportunities out there for it. There's some people who are almost can't miss prospects, get them in a money management course. Hopefully they don't do anything really stupid. And you mainly just hear about the really dumb ones. And you don't think that there's, 1,500 players in the NFL roughly, about 50 players on the team, and it's a little over 30 teams. You hear the dumb stuff that 10 or 15 of them do in a given year, and you don't really hear that much about the rest of them. But it's those 10 or 15 dumb ones that can really make a big impact on what you see out of it. And the same with the college team. I mean, Tennessee can have 1 or 2 bad players, and that's all you did, tore the whole team. I guess the other thing, Tennessee basketball has managed to get out and win a couple of games after a really bad loss to UTEP.
Oh, that was painful to watch.
And people are going to say that. So I saw some people making the argument, well, we're probably going to go 2-1 in the tournament, or maybe even 1-2 if we had got out and if we had beat UTEP, we probably would have lost Iowa. But we shouldn't. We shouldn't have been able to beat Iowa. And Kansas was gotten beat by Villanova, so we could have played decently with them. But regardless, the big opportunity blown by losing that game was simply to play against a team that was going to make the NCAA tournament. As of now, Tennessee finished second in the SEC and fourth in the SEC in the last 2 years and didn't make the NCAA tournament because the SEC is a terrible league in basketball. So Tennessee basically has Virginia and Wichita State left as projected NCAA teams.
And really and truly in the basketball, your RPI is what really matters.
Yeah, I mean, that you have to have a good RPI. You have to have quality wins, and Tennessee doesn't have the opportunity to get them. I mean, that you go into a tournament like this, Atlanta's tournament, you got to win your first round game to play the named teams in it. I mean, Wake Forest has a name sort of, but
Wake Forest was good once.
Their biggest,
at one point, but they're not right now.
Their biggest thing this year from the preseason, they have the coach in the ACC that's most likely to be fired because they've had 3 terrible seasons in a row. They're 30-60 in the last 3 seasons. That win's not probably going to help you unless Wake has just a miracle run in the ACC this year, which I really don't see because it's a tough league. We get a game against Florida here in a way, we'll probably win one of those 2, maybe both, because we always beat Florida, it seems like.
And obviously we'll have a game against Kentucky.
We only get
the new.
one game against Kentucky, and it's at Rupp. That's going to be tough to get a win, frankly, because you have to beat about 9 people. You have to beat the 3 officials and the guys running the score clock, too, in addition to their team. So that's going to be a tough win to get. Missouri is on the bubble, basically projected, so that may or may not be an NCAA tournament team you get to face. Alabama's in that same boat on the bubble. You don't want to go in with this, just how terrible the SEC is and be at 21-10 or something like that. Because last year 19, 20, and 11 didn't get you in.
Right. I mean, and you look as good as the SEC has done in football in recent history. Man, our basketball is awful.
I mean, we have a really good team in Kentucky, potentially, and a really good team in Florida. But after that, there's no parity. It's just
The Mississippi's are atrocious.
Mississippi had a decent play. Mississippi could be decent again this year. I don't know. It's according to whether that drug user that they played is on the team or not.
Chickenhead, yeah.
I-
You never really hear about LSU or Arkansas basketball.
LSU is maybe on the rise this year. That's a key game actually early in the season. We go down and play at LSU. A win there would be a pretty big win, and it may help toward the end of the year. The thing that Tennessee can't afford by losing that game to UTEP is even though it was one game, and honestly losing the first game to Xavier, which they sort of made up for, but you still needed that road win. You can't afford to go out and lay an egg against Georgia this year.
No.
Last year we beat Florida. That was all good. Probably gonna make the NCAA tournament. We lose to Georgia and wiped it out. You can't have a good win and then lose to a terrible team because it does nothing for you at that point.
Now, speaking of basketball wins, the Lady Cougars picked up their first win during holiday tournaments this week. Very proud of those girls. Hopefully you'll be getting some of them down here for some interviews soon. The boys are still waiting on the football players to really get their roster to full strength.
They dropped a tough one to Fulton the other night. Low scoring, but Fulton, you gotta say, generally a state level team. They're great in football. They're pretty darn good in basketball too.
Well, you know, Jody Wright, everybody's listening, I've told the story. His family, his early basketball career centers around Caryville. His aunt is my neighbor. His late father, Gene, was one of my grandmother's best friends. And Jody is just a tremendous coach. I mean, he lives in a talent-rich area down there. But, he does some excellent work. I mean, because Nashville and Memphis are talent-rich in basketball in general. I mean, they have massive hood populations.
Memphis is usually probably has the 10 best teams in the state, just in their area, most of the time.
And Jody, he has molded some great teams. I mean, it says a lot about a coach when they name, especially in high school, when they name the gym after you while you're still actively coaching.
That was a tough, not particularly unexpected loss. I think the Cougars are 3-2 right now. I think Coach Housey, he's going to go on. He'll have a good season this year. I mean, he's got to play in with a really exciting brand of basketball. The new foul rules are giving everybody a little trouble right now.
Right, you figure by midway through the season, hopefully all teams will be used to that.
One of the big things now with some of the players coming back in off the football team, you're going to have more fouls to give for sure. Trey Torres, he sprained his ankle, so that's hurting the team right now. He's the starting point guard, and he was coming off football a little late. But they've been getting pretty good play anyway. Darren Gilmwaters, we mentioned before, has been lighting it up pretty well. Just, we've got a lot of good parts. Coach Browning has a lot of good parts to his team. You're going to get into the district play starting in January after the holidays are over and the holiday tournaments. And it's a long winter on the basketball circuit.
And most of Campbell County's home games are not until after New Year's.
Yeah, I mean,
They only have one home game left between now and
honestly,
next year.
I mean, you get a few games to start the season. You get that. Then you go on the road a lot for, like they said, the holiday tournaments. And the holiday tournaments through Christmas, and the holiday tournaments through Thanksgiving. That's what you do. And the heart of their schedule is going to come is in January and February. That's the nights where they're going to make their playoff seeding and hopefully, get out and, of course, everybody plays to make a good showing in the tournament and move on into the state playoffs. It's going to be tough. A lot of good teams in the district. We got good coaches. We got good coaches at all levels of sports. I was just talking about that the other day, talking about how much I'm looking forward to spring sports.
Spring sports are going to be hectic this year. You're going to have boys soccer, and of course track, tennis, softball, and baseball. I know for a fact Brian Miracle, while Browning is coaching girls basketball, Brian Miracle has the baseball team sitting up on that hill in that batting cage. They got the enclosed batting cage. They've got one of the most beautiful baseball fields in the district. He's got them working. I've not had a chance to talk to any of the softball players yet, but I know that they're not far away from.
They've been working unofficially for a few months already.
Of course, track is track. You know that We've got a great youth track movement too.
Yeah, track is always Campbell County's stalwart. It's the most successful sport we have. I mean, there's a lot of athletes that participate in it, so you have more opportunities for championships. But it's where Campbell County has won state titles before. It's where Campbell
Multiple
County
state titles
wins
of that.
district titles and wins sectional titles, as they're called. It's where Campbell County excels in track. We have good athletes, and there's lots of good upperclassmen returnees, but I'm particularly excited with Bryce Dossett and Gracie Faulkner.
Gracie is the athlete to watch in track, I think, this year. She is a distance runner without equal. I mean, it's bred into her, frankly.
And Bryce is just a freshman, but Bryce was pretty dominating as an 8th grader.
She was.
At that level. And she's a tall girl, long legs, and just, they work hard. When you work hard, it's going to be rewarded. You got a lot of good sprinters on the team. There's always some good high jump contenders.
I actually think Rachel Nelson will be one to watch this year.
I'm not sure if he's going to do track or not. Corey Phillips is would probably be a pretty good high jumper. He's got
I would think so. Of course, the thing with male athletes now, they have that extra big option in the spring.
Yeah, some of them will play soccer. I saw that Joseph Elkins was recently speaking whether he was going to play track or going to participate in track or not as well. He's a great receiver. Track will help his speed.
Oh yeah, when I coached, I wanted as many athletes as possible in track.
It's going to be around the time of spring training for football for some of his stuff, but
Well, Matt and Justin have always done the later spring practice rather than some of these schools that do the February spring practice.
one thing for certain, the coaches, the track coaches, they have good regimens to improve your speed and endurance. And any little bit helps. It's an advantage. I mean, you can excel in the track sport, get a wide potential scholarship offers, and it helps improve your other sports.
Right, and again with soccer, you look. I briefly talked to Shane about it. He said he has had a tremendous interest in boys soccer. Good number of athletes.
I expect that there will be quite a team. There's lots of soccer opportunities out there. And soccer, you can get a team and get it going and actually win some games pretty quickly in soccer. It's a sport that has a lesser curve. I mean, granted, there's some really powerful soccer teams around here that Campbell County's going to probably have to play.
But they're not the district teams. The two truly powerful soccer teams in Knoxville are Farragut and Bearden, and that's the other district.
So there's opportunities there and new sports. I think things will be good. I guess my general closing topic, talk NFL, had a lot of NFL games the whole Thanksgiving week. Dallas won. I was pretty darn happy with that. Fighting it out with those Rotten Eagles to try to stay in the NFC East race. Have a one game up on them right now. Can't afford to lose anymore. I mean, unfortunately for our director and great friend Christopher Burton, that means I have to pull against his Bears next week. He's probably going to be pulling against my Cowboys. Can't blame him for that.
Now, of course, for folks out there that are Titans fans, they, this week is kind of crucial to their playoff hopes. And
Titans are not in a good spot right now.
no, they're not.
Their quarterback, of course, Jake Locker's hurt. Looked like he was going to start playing really well, and then he's out. Ever since the Music City Miracle, the luck has not been with Tennessee. Couldn't get that stop, or couldn't get that touchdown against the Rams, would have won the Super Bowl. Who knows how long it may be before they get back again. We were talking earlier before we went on about the lost franchises, and that the Titans are bordering on becoming basically a lost franchise.
They're on the verge. I mean, they're not Jacksonville.
I mean, it's been since '99 that they did much. I mean, Dallas has not really done anything either.
But Dallas is,
Of course, Dallas.
Dallas is one of those franchises. Dallas,
It has a
the
sterling
Bears,
history. They're all-
Pittsburgh. As much as I hate them,
Jerry Jones is going to spend money stupidly, but he's going to spend money. But you get Jacksonville's and Cleveland and Buffalo and teams like that. And if you're a fan of those teams, I mean, you're a dedicated fan because they do nothing.
more power to you.
I'm glad the Redskins have joined that cause. I mean, actually, the Redskins will spend money, but I hate them, so I'm glad that they're terrible this year. NFC North, the Bears had a golden opportunity in that NFC North, playing a pretty bad Minnesota team, and Alshon Jeffrey had a monstrous game against Minnesota. AP had a big game against Dallas, or against the Bears, and controversial decision by the coach to kick the field goal on second down. I personally would not have done it. I was talking to Chris about it before we went on, but when Lane Kiffin did that against Alabama, we got the field goal blocked rather than trying to get the ball any closer. And Kiffin was playing for a 40-something yard field goal, which made no sense to me. Tressman played for a 47-yard field goal. It's in a dome, and it's a very makeable. Gold is the best kicker probably in NFL history, at least the most accurate kicker in NFL history. But still, it's only second down. I would have.
There's no reason to not take at least one more run. Matt Forte's a great runner.
I would have ran one up the middle, assumed that Forte wasn't going to fumble because Forte doesn't fumble very much. Tressman apparently said he was afraid of getting a penalty. If you get a penalty right there, it's still second down. It's second down, and you know.
If you get a penalty right there at second, then you turn to Alshon Jeffrey, who's been catching so well.
Alshon Jeffrey been killing it all day, but it's a tough decision to make, and it didn't do the Bears any great favors. It put them a game behind the Detroit Lions, de facto 2 games behind the Detroit Lions, because the Detroit Lions beat the Bears this year head to head. We'll see if the Bears can make it up, because there's not any wild card room anymore because the San Francisco-Seattle battle going on out there. Unless one of those two tanks it, they're going to get a wild card slot. And then you have the NFC South, where New Orleans is playing really well, and so is Carolina, and that's going to be the other wild card slot. So that's why it's really crucial for Dallas to keep winning, and for the Bears to keep winning, whoever, because you've got to win your division at this point. The Lions are known for their late season swoons, and the Packers may be shutting down Aaron Rodgers, so if they do that, they're done. But it's Philadelphia and Dallas, the Bears, Detroit. They're pretty much the 4 teams. Sort of marginally New York and marginally Green Bay are still in it technically, but they're not in good shape to get in it. But those are the teams fighting for those last 2 playoff spots, which will be automatic bids. But the other 4 teams appear to be solidly on their way to making the playoffs. 2 as division champions, 2 as wild cards. And it's just tough races in the NFL. And Dallas has no excuse, really. They're just bad on defense and make baffling coaching decisions.
The talent on Dallas's team is there.
And to me, Detroit has no excuse either, because they have pretty good talent as well. The Bears, of course, are dealing with massive injuries, so that you can see why they would be in the shape they're in. Green Bay has significant injuries, don't like them, but you can see why they're in the shape they're in. Philadelphia, they just had issues. That's why they're in the shape they're in. And of course, New York started the season 0-6, and you're pretty much never going to make the playoffs when you start that bad. The AFC North, Pittsburgh actually did start 0-6, and looks like they could possibly make the playoffs, because the Bengals tanked it. The Browns are the Browns. Baltimore is also right there in consideration after their bad start to the season. The AFC East, New England's going to win that division.
Right, that's
everybody in that division is just crap. New England gets to go beat up on terrible teams. Play any tough game they ever have. It seems like it's always in Foxborough on a cold, windy night, no matter who it is. They managed to pull out some miracles. I mean, once Rob Gronkowski's came back, Brady suddenly looked better. People are talking about Brady for MVP, but I'm not sure. You can attest to Brady's season.
I can. I absolutely can.
As many games under 150 yards passing this year with no touchdowns.
Tony Romo was actually, I drafted Brady first, and Romo was my backup, and it wound up switching.
AFC West, it looked like it was going to be the most competitive division, but Denver's got that one pretty much by the throat after having swept Kansas City, and Kansas City suddenly lost 3 games in a row, and Denver beat San Diego head-to-head, and also have another game against San Diego coming up. I think this one may be in Denver. So it looks like Denver's probably going to win that division. The AFC South's a mess. As we mentioned, Tennessee's in bad shape. Houston just completely went to pieces. Indianapolis looks like they could beat any team in the NFL some weeks. Other weeks they can lose to any team in the NFL. And Jacksonville's just dreadfully bad. So
Jacksonville may be the worst team in the NFL in a long time.
I didn't think they were going to win a game this year, but somehow they beat Tennessee. So, Tennessee, if you missed a playoffs by a game, losing that one to Jacksonville probably is a big giant bullseye to paint on somebody. NFC West, I hate the entire conference out there. I hate San Francisco especially bad. I don't like Seattle because their fans are just acting like they're the best team
Hate
ever.
Arizona.
I'm generally neutral towards Arizona, but they should I wish they'd beat the Philadelphia Eagles and help me out a little bit for my peace of mind. But they let Philadelphia beat them, and that sort of made them get in a tough spot to get that last wild card. Because they would have been 8-4, and now they're suddenly 7-5, and I think Carolina maybe 9-3 or something along those lines. So that just made that wild card spot pretty much out of reach for them, or very close to out of reach, unless teams go in the tank and they win out. But it's going to come down to the final weeks like it always does in the NFL, and look at it this way. The last 3 Super Bowl winners have been 10-6, 9-7, and 10-6 going into the playoffs. So if these teams that go 13-3 or 14-2, beautiful to look at in the regular season, it's not really translating into a lot of Super Bowl wins. You had New England won 16-0, lost the Super Bowl to a team that went 10-6. It's just the way it happens. Teams in the NFL, you get hot, you peak at the right time. Every team in the NFL, even the difference between Jacksonville and the best team isn't anywhere near as disparate as even say the #1 ranked team in college football versus the 21st or 22nd ranked team in college football. There's a much bigger gap between.
There's a much bigger gap between, say, Alabama and
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Or somebody like that, who's ranked 25th-ish. There's a much bigger gap usually in that spread than there is between the NFL's worst and best team. And with the Jacksonville win, showed over a decent Tennessee team. Even the worst of teams can get wins in the NFL, and generally the games aren't blowouts like they are in college. So you get in the playoffs, you're 10-6. Maybe you had a few bad injuries earlier in the year. Maybe you just didn't play well at the start of the season. You never know. You may beat that team that's 13-3 or 14-2. Home field's usually pretty big in the playoffs, but those teams all played games on the road. I mean, Baltimore had to beat Denver at Denver and New England at New England. The New York Giants, when they won the Super Bowl, had to play on the road several games in the playoffs. It's just that's how it goes. You got to see if your team's tough enough to make it through. You got to hope you don't have injuries. I said that's why Dallas has had a couple of injuries, but nothing to, as bad as the NFC East. Dallas just couldn't get a win outside of the NFC East.
Fortunately,
NFC North beat them up. They had, of course, got stuck with playing New Orleans in the NFC South, which didn't go good either.
Fortunately, as long as you're getting the wins in the NFC East, you're going to win the NFC East.
That's what I say. You can get in. You can be 8-8, 9-7, win your division. You make the playoffs while a team that's, Arizona technically to finish 11-5 and not make the playoffs. While, you can have an 8-8 NFC East team that makes the playoffs. That's just the nature of the NFL. But, you dealt what you're dealt. Kind of a tough situation when you get in. You got 16 games to go out there and accomplish something, and then you don't. And the next year you draft a bunch of offensive players again and give your quarterback $150 million, and you're still 500 every year. That's me as a Dallas fan. That's been the last 17, 18 years now. It's like we're 500 every year.
Pretty much after Swisher ground out what was left of Jimmy Johnson's team, there wasn't much to look forward
After
to.
Troy Aikman's 5th concussion, that was pretty much the end of that. I would have never thought it would have taken this long for Dallas to bounce back because they do spend so much money. Jerry Jones is just an idiot.
There's another Herschel Walker out there somewhere for him.
Well, I have nothing else to say.
I think that about wraps us up for the evening, fans. We'll see you back here next week.